Once again, I do invite everybody to look at the show notes and click on my link for the YouTube channel because there are going to be a lot of neat visuals that you may want to look at. But if you don't have access to it, I will certainly try to describe them as best as I can. Hello again. I wanted to give an update after my second weekend of golf this year. After that first weekend, it snowed fairly heavily and stuck around for a couple of days. Luckily, the snow melted and we were good to go for the following weekend, which was a couple of days ago. The temperatures were in the low single digits in the morning Celsius and maybe around 10 or 11 C in the afternoon. It was windy, a little less so on Sunday, but definitely not as windy as some of the other days. The wind was maybe blowing around 5 to 10 and on Sunday, maybe around 20-ish gusts on Saturday. So to summarize the opening weekend from my last podcast, number one, I was too focused on stat tracking, not enough focus on getting the ball into the hole. I shot 86 with four doubles on the first round, managed to do four shots better with an 82 on Sunday with three doubles. From a strokes gained perspective, my approach shot strokes gained was abysmal. It was basically a sea of red when you looked at the strokes gained stats. The best part of my game was off the tee, reaching in the 60 percentage range, 60 to 70% on fairways hit. Obviously, with these stats, I was nowhere close to getting to scratch. What the poor opening weekend's rounds did teach me is where to practice. So, my primary responsibility for practice was my iron game from 180 yards and in. Also, I did scull a couple of bunker shots in that first weekend. So I reread part of a section of a book that I purchased on short game in general. Practiced a few bunker shots, and that really did help my confidence in the second weekend in both soft and compact sand that we have on the course. So unfortunately, with all that snow that I mentioned that we got earlier in the week, the course was closed. I was able to focus on some iron contact drills in the simulator because I felt that was quite inconsistent and uncommitted on my first weekend. So I wanted to make sure that I was more committed to the shots. Since I had a very late tee time on Saturday, I got to the course early. I practiced irons, a bit of putting, and some block practice with the irons once again. This time I didn't have any greasy meals to worry about wiping off my fingers. I had all of my technology working more or less, so I was off to the course. Okay, I'm going to briefly pop up my Saturday scorecard and my strokes gained. You can see the first six holes are fairly difficult for me. I started with three bogeys, had a par and another couple of bogeys, so I started out at plus five, poorly again. I believe I shot plus five after my first six holes on my very first round as well. And you can remember it sort of went downhill quickly where I ended up at, I think it was plus 15 overall in the round last week. Well, I seem to have turned things around after that sixth hole, getting a couple of birdies on par fives. Recall the previous weekend, I was getting doubles and bogeys on par fives, which is a big no-no. And yeah, so the back nine was much improved. These holes 16, 17, and 18 are quite difficult, and it was very windy. So to get par on those three holes was a pretty good accomplishment. I do remember on 16 hitting my five iron from about 100 and 140, 150 yards over a creek, and I did get onto the left side of the green, so that was a pretty good accomplishment. So I shot 77, which was five shots better than what I did the previous round on the previous weekend. And if you look at the strokes gained, off the tee was quite good, with the exception of those first two holes. The approach shots were much better, only four shots where I lost, or 4 holes where I lost more than half a shot to sort of the PGA field. Around the greens, nothing to write home about here. Just one sort of bad hole. My putting did sort of get worse from the first round. But I mean, all in all, I was fairly happy with this performance. So the Saturday round was fairly late. I think we finished around 9 p.m. with a early morning cold Sunday morning start at 8:30, so less than a 12-hour turnaround, which was probably a good thing. I figured I needed to change my strategy, especially on the first 2 holes. Like, as you can see here, I still made bogey on those first 2 holes, but I did hit driver, and on the first hole, at least it ended up good. I just hit a poor second shot and chip, and I didn't make the putt, so I made a bogey there. Number two, I sprayed the drive a little bit, but I still had a shot. I just hit a poor iron shot. Um, but after those first 2 holes, I really did turn it around. I got a birdie on that difficult par five that I have trouble with the bunkers. Luckily, I kept it long and straight off the tee and just got it on the front of the green there and two putted for my birdie, and fairly uneventful for the rest of these first 6 holes, which, as you remember, were my nemesis. 5 over par in the past. Here I'm 1 over. Number eight was an interesting one. This is that short par three. My ball absolutely plugged into the face of a bunker, and I made a very good shot, in my opinion, to basically take as hard a swing as I could just to get pop the ball out, and ended up to maybe like 20 feet, and I missed that putt and gladly got my bogey. After that, it was fairly smooth sailing. Uh, I will show a different version of the scorecard. Actually, I probably don't need to do that, but what I will say is that on my back nine, I hit every single green, which I think is the only time I've ever done that. So there's a combination of having that improved iron play, having better course strategy, knowing my distances and my dispersion, a lot of what that Decade app teaches. And I hit 9 out of 9 greens. Altogether, I think it was 14 out of 18 greens. Obviously, when you hit greens, you're going to three putt, and I had one yippee first putt on number 17, and number 16 wasn't a good first putt either. So there's something I have to improve on, is my long putting. If I am going to hit a lot of greens, I need to be able to make some putts closer. You can see the strokes gained. It looks a lot better. I mean, I did shoot 74 with a couple of bad three putts, which could have been much better. But all in all, the putting was fairly decent except for those 2 holes. No red on the strokes gained. The approach to the green was quite a bit better. Like, really, one really good number and one bad number. But if you remember that first weekend, it was mostly red here on my green approach. So quite happy with this 74, and that was an improvement of another 3 shots. So essentially, I went from 86 to 82 to 77 to 74. And then I had enough energy to have a round with my son, who's playing some college golf. And we played from a farther set of tees back in the evening, 9 holes. And I ended up beating him as well. He shot 39, I shot 37. I had some spectacular up and downs from bunkers and flop shots. So it was kind of lucky on my part. I haven't beaten him in a couple of years. So happy about that. Yeah. So it's pretty encouraging. I can't wait to get out and keep improving and get that handicap down. I decided I'm going to show the scorecard after all because it looks so pretty. But this is that Sunday round of 74 using the Golf Shot app, and you can see the greens in regulation with all the green circles with the bullseye. 9 in a row here. Actually, I hit the green on number 9. So 10 greens in a regulation in a row, which was really good for me. And you can see my handicap at the start of the season was 5.1. It went up after that first weekend, and now you can see we're down to 4.4. So that's, I guess, 14% improvement on the year. So pretty happy about that. Now I'm going to talk about the Tiger 5 real quick. It's pretty interesting. Now, my understanding of the Tiger 5 is this was a goal that he set up for himself to avoid certain things over the course of a 4 round tournament. In his mind, if he averaged 1.5 of these no-nos around, so 6 per tournament, he figured he would win. And what these are no bogeys on par fives, no doubles, no three putts, no bogeys with scoring clubs. So that's 150 yards and in, and no double chips. So I showed Tiger's goal of 1.5 per round. Here was my first weekend. Not only did I really exceed it, I was tenfold higher than that goal. That was just terrible. I had bogeys and doubles on par fives, lots of doubles, lots of three putts. My approach game was pretty bad, so it probably was even worse than this, but that's what I counted in double chips. So that gave me 15. On my second round, I improved that to 10, largely because I avoided three putts, but the rest of my approach game was and double bogey game was not good. So this past weekend, as I said, I did do a lot of practice. I completely avoided double bogeys on the last 2 rounds. I only had one bogey on a par 5, and that was the first one that I played. Got smartened up after that, apparently. Three putts are still a problem, but as I said, I'm hitting more greens in regulation and ending up farther from the flag. So this is definitely something I can improve on, as well as trying to get rid of the bogeys with the scoring clubs. I did a fairly decent job of that on my first round, not so much on the second round, largely on the first couple of holes. And I didn't have any double chips, so I had 5 and 5, which I'm quite happy with. I think if I could average maybe 3 or 4 of those around, I think that will go a long way to getting me to scratch. So that's what I wanted to introduce about the Tiger 5. I'm just going to try to keep these stats up and make sure that I keep following them. But thank you for listening to me this week, and we'll talk to you next week on Senior to Scratch.